Hey, EC here, and the console war is officially over. It looks as if, after decades of struggle, the actual battle between which plastic box to play your games on is better. And we can all agree that when it comes to hardcore, more powerful consoles like, say, PlayStation, Xbox, the winner is clearly Steam. Steam clearly won that battle because, all the first party games from PlayStation and Xbox are now coming to Steam. The price of these consoles as well now, you might as well just get a gaming PC if you want to play those games. But that's not what I want to talk about in this video. I want to talk about, how Nintendo, in my opinion, actually won the console. Because let's be honest, let's be frank. PlayStation, Xbox, those first-party games now are coming to Steam. They've been coming to PC and stuff for a while. Not only are they on these, are they on PC, but also you can play them on cloud gaming services, in some cases like GeForce Now, Booster, and some other places. Now, this to me shows that those consoles are no longer interested in being a console manufacturer as such, or more so. They're more open to being a publisher and publishing their games on other platforms. Nintendo, they've not done that. They're still keeping their games exclusive to their platform and their ecosystem. And that is because, quite frankly, Nintendo gamers and people who like Nintendo games will buy a Nintendo console just for Nintendo's output. Like, the third-party games have always sort of been a second thought to the mainline Nintendo franchises and IPs that Nintendo will publish on, say, the Switch or the Wii or the GameCube. Now, let's be fair, they have struggled with that because of such. The N64 did not have the best library of games because besides the Nintendo and Rare, there wasn't really much else. Likewise as well, the GameCube did struggle because obviously the GameCube was mainly kids games and obviously Nintendo first party stuff. Although it was kind of weird because they put out like the first M-rated Nintendo game. What was it? Eternal Darkness was actually a GameCube exclusive published by Nintendo, and it's just like, really? That is insane. That the first people correct me and say, "Oh, Conker's Bad Fur." No, Conker's Bad Fur was done by Rare. The first Nintendo published and developed. Not developed, published game, that was mature was obviously on the GameCube. But also the idea that, Nintendo has just got this library of games that people keep coming back and buying on the Switch and Switch 2 and whatever. It also shows as well with the Virtual Console. With Virtual Console, people would just buy the same games over and over again. It is clear that Nintendo has a brand that people love. And that's also why I think they've won the console war. Because think about this. Nintendo's hardware has not been the most powerful in the market since what? The Super Nintendo? Which was, 1988, 1990 or something like that. So Nintendo has not been the most powerful console in the arena for a long time. They kind of gave up on power and they focused more on using age technology. Gunpei Yokoi, used to say stuff about, how it's easier to use older technology that can be mass produced for cheaper than using high-tech, which, will push boundaries and stuff. And I think that rings true today to a very high extent because obviously you look at say the Switch sales compared to the Xbox One, PS4. The PS4 is close, not too far behind, but the Xbox One, geez man, at the time it was the world's most powerful console. Now it's irrelevant. But then also look at the current console sales. Switch 2 is not really a fair comparison as of right now because it's still quite new on the market. It's only been out for a few months, but it's already sold something like 5 million units from what I remember here. I remember hearing people say 5 million units. It sold 3.5 million in literally 4 days, which shows it was successful right out of the gate. Although it may not be long term, we don't know yet. But also, the Switch 2 is not trying to reinvent the wheel. It is just trying to be a more powerful Switch. That's all it really needs to do to really appeal to people. People just wanted a Switch 2 or a Switch that could do certain things. Obviously, they do need to still fix the eShop. The eShop still has a ton of crap on it. But realistically, Nintendo has sort of won the battle because they're still keeping all their games locked to their platform. People are still buying those consoles for those games. People are still paying for that online service, even though the online gaming quality is just not that good, just because it's got the retro games on there. It's genuinely just kind of insane to see that Nintendo has just arguably won the console war. And that is largely because PlayStation and Xbox have pushed their consoles so hard, power-wise, where the prices are just indistinguishable from a PC. So you might as well just buy a PC and get all the games. right? With Xbox and PlayStation also now publishing games on each other's consoles. You know, Helldivers 2 is on Xbox. Gears of War is on PlayStation. Like, that is just weird to me. You know, and obviously both have published games on the Switch and Switch 2 as well. Like, MLB The Show came to Switch. Like, I believe Ori and the Will of the Wisps and Ori and the Blind Forest are on Switch as well. And Switch 2, obviously. Yeah, it's just kind of insane. I feel like Nintendo kind of won the battle because they're the ones people are still buying the consoles just for the games, you know? And really, that's just kind of what you need of a console. So I do think in a few years we will see Sony or I'll say PlayStation, and Xbox sort of back away from just doing consoles and just focus on the games, because that just seems to be the future for those platforms. So sure, the consoles will still sell for them, but they won't be as important. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Do you think Nintendo won the console war? Do you think I'm just a fanboy? Do you think I'm a shill? Tell me what you think in the comments, because I'm interested in hearing your guys' take. Anyway, if you're new, subscribe, like, all that stuff. I've been EC. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.